The Arlesdale Railway is home to the smallest engines on the island of Sodor. Miniature engines haul tiny coaches and tiny freight cars up and down their beautiful line. In spite of their size, they are very useful, and can get very big ideas. One morning, Mike, the red engine, was ready to leave the station with a passenger train when a grumpy Frank rolled by with some wagons of ballast. "I don't like this work at all," he groaned. "I'd much rather be in my shed." "Buzz off, you old buzzbox," scoffed Mike. "It's not like you work any harder than the rest of us engines." Before Frank could retort, the guard blew his whistle and Mike set off with his passengers. Mike's favorite part of the line was the forest. He loved how peaceful and quiet it was, and would get very excited indeed when he made stops to let the passengers take photographs. As Mike and his driver sat comfortably, waiting for the all-clear signal from the guard, a speeding lorry suddenly darted through the forest from the road behind them. It ran through a puddle and soaked a passenger's camera. "Who on earth is driving that horrid thing?" the passengers grumbled. The guard had to pacify them in the coaches, but Mike was none the wiser. "Just look at the lorry go," he said dreamily. "No rails to stick to and all the freedom it could ask for." Mike's driver rolled his eyes knowingly. The all-clear signal was given, and Mike chuffered away. At the next station, Mike noticed Jock, the yellow engine, looking over at something. Mike looked in his direction and saw the lorry from earlier. Its driver was being questioned by a policeman. "You see that, Mike?" huffed Jock. "No sense, these road drivers. They think speed restrictions are optional." "Maybe so," remarked Mike, "but you have to admit, road travel does have its benefits." "Oh dear, what are you getting at?" groaned Jock. "I've been thinking that traveling by road is much more desirable than by rail. You can go anywhere you like." Jock laughed as he went to go fetch some wagons. "No thank you, I'd rather stick to my rails. You always go where you're meant to go." That night, Jock told the other miniature engines in the shed. "Only a daft engine would ever think of going on the road," chuckled Bert. "It's not really worth trying, you know," added Rex. "I don't know if you're aware, but roads aren't built for us engines." But Mike simply ignored them. The next day, Mike was very busy. He had lots of passengers and freight to take to and from Arlesdale. However, his desire to travel by road was still fresh in his mind the whole day. That evening, Mike was ready to return home with some empty wagons. He was anxious to get back before nightfall, as he didn't like roaming around in the dark. Come on, where's that whistle when you need it?" "If you needed the guard's whistle, you would have blown it by now," laughed Mike's driver. Sure enough, the guard's whistle blew, and Mike set off for home. Not too far down the line, Frank was hauling his last train as well. He was carrying rock from the quarry and was trying to rush the job through. "Can you believe it, driver?" growled Frank. "That stupid lorry got into trouble again, and now it's me who has to suffer for it." I know, sighed the driver, but we're still making good time. With the rate you're going, I'm sure we won't be long now. But the two were so busy talking that they weren't paying attention to their own speed. The wagon shuddered and shaked, and as Frank kept going faster, some large rocks bounced out of the last one and onto the rails behind them. Mike wasn't paying attention to the rails in front of him, and so he didn't see the rocks until it was too late. Ah! He went off the rails, broke through a fence, skidded through a meadow, and finally landed himself on the nearby road. "Ah!" shrieked Mike. The road couldn't handle Mike's weight, and so there were deep grooves in the road where his wheels had made contact. Mike was terrified. He no longer wanted to be anywhere near the road. It took quite some time to get Mike back on the rails. Frank was sorry for being careless with his load, but the other engines found it all a great joke. "Lovely things, roads," said a voice. Mike wasn't sure, and he didn't feel like asking either way, but he believed the voice belonged to Jock.